Qin Liyue had simply gone out on a date with her boyfriend. But by accident she knocked on the wrong door. In that instant, the first kiss she had guarded for years was stolen by a complete stranger. And this man would go on to change the course of her life. She struggled to break free, but the man just smirked, telling her to drop the act and name her price. Then he tossed out 500,000 yuan as compensation for the kiss. Outraged, Qin Liyue lashed out at him. Did he really think she was that kind of woman? She despised arrogant rich boys who thought money made them untouchable, and in her fluster she blurted out her name. The moment he heard Qin Liyue, his expression shifted, shock flashing across his face. She immediately worried that revealing her name would only invite more trouble. The more she thought about it, the more shaken she felt, deciding to treat the whole incident like a dog bite, best forgotten. Seizing the moment, she made her escape. Once she was gone, a sly grin curled on the man's lips. This time you won't escape me. Qin Liyue braced herself and knocked on her boyfriend's door, only to be met by a stranger in nothing but a bath towel. From inside, her boyfriend's irritated voice called out, demanding to know who was at the door. She could hardly believe it. The man who always played the part of the honest, dependable type was nothing but a fraud. Even after being caught red-handed, he acted shamelessly and tossed out a blunt, "Let's break up." 5 years together since their sophomore year, and yet it couldn't compare to one night in another woman's bed. If that was love, she didn't want it. She agreed to the breakup on the spot and demanded her salary card back. She had once believed he was the one, trusting him enough to let him manage her money, even dreaming of buying a home together. But when she found out the account had been drained to almost nothing, she finally saw his true colors. He sneered and laid it bare. "If you weren't pretty, you think I'd have stayed with you? 5 years and you never even let me kiss you once." Those words cut into Qin Liyue's heart like a knife. That day, Qin Liyue received a call out of the blue. Her aunt had been kidnapped. The kidnappers demanded 1 million yuan in ransom before they would let her go. Desperate, she had gone to her boyfriend for her salary card. But fate played its cruel trick. She lost her first kiss to a stranger and caught her boyfriend cheating in the same day. Fighting to stay composed, she bent down and picked up the card. Then she flung it straight into his face. "Keep the rest, buy yourself a coffin." With things as they were, she had no choice but to find another way to save her aunt, her only living family. She kept telling herself everything would be fine, but tears still welled up in her eyes. In the end, she couldn't hold them back, breaking down in the cold night rain. Out of options, Qin Liyue swallowed her pride and went to her uncle's family for help. All she was met with was distance and indifference. Her spiteful aunt, eager to tie the family to the wealthy Zong clan, demanded that Qin Liyue marry Zong Mingze, a man known to be simple-minded. Her aunt-in-law spoke as if it were perfectly reasonable. Once this marriage went through, the Qin family could finally latch onto the wealthy Zong clan. After that, her own daughter could marry the simple groom's older brother, Zong Mingho. She even added, "You can always divorce later if you want." Qin Jiar, standing nearby, twisted the knife. "So what if you marry an idiot? It's better than selling yourself. Do you know how many times you'd have to sell to make 1 million? At that moment, Qin Liyue's heart was in turmoil. Was she really going to trade her own happiness for their wealth and status? Once she entered that family, would she ever get out? Just then, a deliverman arrived with a package. She thought for a fleeting second that it might be her ex-boyfriend feeling guilty. But when she opened it, she nearly dropped dead from shock. Inside was one of her aunt's fingers. A note lay beside it. 3 days to agree or she dies. Between her aunt's life hanging by a thread and her relative's cold mockery, she broke down in tears, abandoning her principles and agreed to marry the wealthy simpleton. The Qin mother and daughter finally got what they wanted, their faces curling into sly, satisfied smiles. On the day of the wedding, Qin Liyue's heart was a knot of anxiety. She had never imagined she would be marrying not the man she loved, but a simple stranger she had never even met. Dressed in a pure white gown, she looked ethereal, drawing gasps of admiration from the crowd. Guests whispered among themselves, saying the Zong family's fool had truly lucked out with such a stunning bride. Standing on stage, Qin Liyue kept her composure. So what if he was a fool? At least he wasn't one of those monsters hiding behind a human face. Then amid the applause, the groom slowly stepped forward. In the next instant, the entire room was stunned. The groom wasn't Zong Mingza at all. It was his older brother, Zong Mingho. The sight made the Qin mother and daughter's hearts shatter on the spot. Qin Jiar couldn't accept it. Her perfect Prince Charming marrying the lowly Liyue? She shouted her objection right there from the audience. Madame Qin's expression darkened, and she dragged her daughter out without another word. When Qin Liyue finally got a good look at the groom, she froze. That was the same pervert who had stolen her first kiss. He didn't look the slightest bit like a fool. Zong Mingho strutted up to her with a smug grin. "This time," he murmured, "you won't slip through my fingers." Originally, the Zong family's grandmother had planned to marry off her simple-minded grandson in hopes of warding off misfortune. But Zong Mingho had stepped in, insisting on taking his brother's place. He even declared that if it wasn't her, he would marry no one. Thus the last-minute switch at the altar. To Qin Liyue, Zong Mingho was nothing but a shameless rogue. Marrying his foolish brother would have felt more secure. But he didn't give her the chance to object. In front of everyone, he took her hand and began a heartfelt confession. She hadn't expected such smooth words to come from this brazen man. Then, without hesitation, he slipped the wedding ring onto her finger. She still didn't know what scheme he was plotting, but right now, all that mattered was saving her aunt. Their eyes locked, and as Qin Liyue took in Zong Mingho's impossibly handsome face, her heart began to race wildly. She thought to herself, what a waste of such a perfect face. Before she could gather her thoughts, he pulled her into his arms again, murmuring in a low, possessive voice, "Qin Liyue, this time I won't let you go so easily." On their wedding night, Qin Liyue felt nothing but unease. She had been told she would marry the simple-minded Zong Mingza. So why had it turned out to be the shameless rogue who had stolen her first kiss, Zong Mingho? After much inner conflict, she could only console herself. At least with looks like his, she wasn't exactly losing out. But Zong Mingho seemed to have no such intentions, merely saying casually, "Wash up and get some sleep." Flustered, Qin Liyue stammered, thinking he was hinting at something more intimate. Zong Mingho raised an eyebrow and shot her down instantly. "You think I'm going to sleep with you? Don't be silly, you're not worthy of my bed." Qin Liyue secretly rejoiced, so he knew this marriage was just for show. Testing the waters, she asked, "Then, when are you planning to divorce me?" Zong Mingho's brows knitted slightly as he looked at her. "Divorce?" He let out a low chuckle. "Seems you still don't know who you've married." Before she could react, he pushed Qin Liyue onto the bed, his overpowering strength pinning her in place. It was the first time Qin Liyue had ever felt such close contact between a man and a woman, and she hadn't even managed to warn him. When in the next moment his lips claimed hers in a forceful, domineering kiss. The sudden intimacy was something Qin Liyue simply couldn't accept. She bit down hard, drawing blood from his lips. "Are you insane? Marriage or not, if I don't want it, you can't just do this." Zong Mingho scoffed, clearly annoyed. "Like I'd even want to touch you. You've got 30 minutes, get off my bed yourself." Strangely, his words made Qin Liyue breathe a sigh of relief. She had no idea what Zong Mingho's true intentions were. Clutching a pair of scissors close to her chest, she lay down on the sofa, silently vowing, if he dares try anything, he's a dead man. But when Zong Mingho came out of the shower, he didn't so much as glance at her. He simply collapsed onto the bed and was asleep within moments. Though relieved to have made it through the night unscathed, Qin Liyue couldn't help feeling a faint, inexplicable disappointment. Meanwhile, a long-forgotten memory played out in Zong Mingho's dreams. Back in their youth, the two of them chased each other through the sunlight, laughing as Qin Liyue called out, "Zong Mingho, come catch me." Back then he had been so naive, thinking that if he caught her they could be friends. But the scene suddenly shifted. Qin Liyue stopped, cheeks puffed in mock anger, and pointed at him. "If you dare follow me again, I'll strip your clothes off." Zong Mingho jolted awake, his eyes clouded with complex emotions. He knew this woman could play the harmless innocent in public, yet in private she could cut down the CEO's wife, with biting sarcasm. And when the green tea type threw herself into his arms, the CEO accepted it, ignoring his own wife entirely. Qin Liyue had seen all of it. She lowered her gaze, mocking herself silently. "Wake up, you and he are only married in name. He only wed you to ward off misfortune for his simple-minded brother. Don't expect him to stand by your side." Stepping into the Zong family was like plunging into a deep sea. Qin Liyue quickly realized that here she could only rely on herself. Ever since she unexpectedly married national heartthrob Zong Mingho, she had become the thorn in every woman's side, especially her cousin and the Qin family, who hated her for stealing the man they believed should have been theirs. Her cousin even laid hands on her, threatening her to divorce Zong Mingho immediately. From the very beginning, Qin Liyue had been nothing more than a puppet, forced into this marriage to save her kidnapped aunt. When the Qin couple realized intimidation wouldn't work, they switched to a softer approach, claiming they had already paid the ransom and rescued her aunt. With no reason left to stay and no feelings for Zong Mingho to begin with, she had no objections to the divorce. She declared on the spot that she and her aunt would move out of the Qin household and sever all ties. Soon after, she saw her aunt kneeling before her mother's grave, tears streaming down her face in repentance. Qin Liyue couldn't understand why her aunt had fallen into such massive debt, especially when she had sacrificed herself by marrying into the Zong family to save her. Her aunt admitted, full of regret, that she had been blinded by greed. Her aunt recalled that day, she had overheard the Qin couple talking about a promising stock. Hoping to earn enough to leave the Qin household, she invested, only to lose everything. Qin Liyue's eyes fell on her aunt's hand and she frowned. "Why wasn't your finger cut off?" Her aunt sighed and explained that it had only been her ring that was taken. In that moment, Qin Liyue pieced it together. This had all been a trap carefully set by the Qin couple, designed to force her into marrying the Zong family's so-called fool, Zong Mingza. They had traded her aunt's safe return for their own wealth and status, never expecting she would end up marrying Zong Mingho instead. At the mention of Zong Mingho's name, her aunt froze, then urgently urged her to stay in the Zong family and absolutely refuse a divorce. She revealed that she had long suspected Liyue's parents' deaths were no accident. In just 2 short years, the Qin family had been nearly wiped out, and someone had to be pulling strings from the shadows. Back then, she had been powerless to investigate. But now it was different. The influence of a powerful family could accomplish what they never could on their own. Her words sent a shock through Qin Liyue. She realized she had been kept in the dark all along. For years, her aunt had been under the Qin couple's thumb, unable to speak out. Now that you are the young madam of the Zong family, the chance for revenge is in your hands. Only by uncovering the truth can you clear your parents' names. At that moment, Qin Liyue's gaze hardened with newfound determination. Suddenly, the butler sent her a message instructing her to attend an evening banquet. She had been ready to refuse, but now that she'd made up her mind, there was no way she would miss it. She had expected a typical high society gathering, but from the moment she stepped inside, she was met with hostility at every turn. The green tea type subtly provoked her, while her domineering Xiao husband looked on with cold indifference. Qin Jiar even had the audacity to show up at the banquet Zong Mingho himself was hosting, only to pour red wine over Qin Liyue's head in front of everyone. She then stood there with a lofty, dismissive air as if nothing had happened. Qin Liyue had never suffered such humiliation. She shot to her feet and lashed out at her on the spot. Their heated exchange quickly caught Zong Mingho's attention. He was about to step in and defend her when another green tea, Mikur, blocked his way. "You're not seriously going to get angry over a woman brought in just to ward off misfortune, are you?" she asked sweetly. Putting on an act of concern, she added, "It's just a little quarrel between sisters. No need to get involved." Hearing this, Zong Mingho merely gave a faint smile and chose to stay out of it. Then a crisp voice rang out from the crowd. "How ironic. The young madam of the Zong family is being bullied and no one dares to say a word. Even if she comes from humble origins, she still entered the Zong family through a proper, recognized marriage. For young Master Zong to calmly watch others humiliate his wife, truly eye-opening." The speaker was Yan Xiaonhua, the heiress of the Yan group, and Qin Liyue was genuinely surprised. She hadn't expected anyone to stand up for her. The distinguished guests immediately began murmuring among themselves, eager for a good show. Mikur drawled mockingly, well, I thought it was someone important. Turns out it's Xiaonhua. You came back to the country and didn't even tell me?" Yan Xiaonhua snorted. "And who are you exactly? Some toad? Why would I need to report to you?" The jab left Mikur's face shifting between green and white, unable to recover her composure. Qin Liyue thought to herself, This Xiaonua must have some serious backing. Yet Zong Mingho still wore the same amused expression, as if enjoying the spectacle rather than stepping in. At that moment Yan Xiaonua pointed at Qin Liyue and snapped, getting splashed by some stray dog and just yelling back. What's the point? You should strip her bare and see if her owner dares to let the dog off its leash again. The remark made the Qin family grit their teeth in fury. Mi Ke, catching the jab aimed her way, hurried to explain that she hadn't ordered anyone to pour the wine. Yan Xiaonua ignored her excuses entirely. Upon learning Qin Liyue's name she patted her chest and declared, Qin Liyue's my friend. Anyone who dares to make trouble for her will answer to me. Just then Zong Mingho stepped up beside her saying lightly, Thank you Miss Yan for stepping in. Yan Xiaonua's face darkened. If you love her then love her fully. If you don't then let her go, she said coldly, going so far as to threaten that she'd take Qin Liyue away herself. Zong Mingho only looked on with casual indifference, cementing his image as a heartless playboy in Yan Xiaonua's eyes. Meanwhile on the other side of the room, Mi Ke was tearing into the Qin family. You can't even handle something this simple. What good are you? Without warning she slapped one of them hard across the face. The Qin family member, seething but powerless, stammered that they hadn't known Yan Xiaonua would interfere, begging Mi Ke for another chance. Mi Ke ticked them away with a sharp, Get out. You nearly made me lose face in front of everyone. At that moment, Qin Liyue was in the dressing room, changing her clothes. Looking up she saw Zong Mingho push the door open and walk in. Her heart skipped a beat, panic rising in her chest. Zong Mingho closed the distance between them, forcing her back until she was pressed against the window. Tilting her chin up with one hand, his gaze sharpened. Why did you marry my brother? What are you after? Qin Liyue, unwilling to explain, turned to leave. A glint of cunning flashed in Zong Mingho's eyes as he stepped on the hem of her dress. She stumbled, nearly falling to the floor. In an instant he caught her, pulling her firmly into his arms. The close contact made Qin Liyue's cheeks flush crimson, a wave of shyness washing over her. Unfortunately, the scene was witnessed by none other than the green tea herself, Mi Ke. Not wanting to create more trouble, Qin Liyue lowered herself to offer a quick apology before hurrying away. Mi Ke's eyes burned with resentment. She silently vowed to make sure they divorced. Putting on an air of intimacy she returned to Zong Mingho's side. But inside Zong Mingho was quietly triumphant. Qin Liyue, the more you try to pull away the more I'll keep you chained to me. Meanwhile Qin Liyue sulked alone in the back garden. From the path ahead, a tall man with elegant features and striking white hair approached. It was Yan Xiaonua's elder brother, Yan Chen. Qin Liyue quickly expressed her gratitude for Yan Xiaonua stepping in on her behalf earlier that day. Qin Liyue's polite exchange with Yan Chen happened to be spotted by Zong Mingho. Mi Ke, ever the opportunist, seized the chance to fan the flames, suggesting with feigned concern that he shouldn't disturb them. In her mind that would make Zong Mingho hers alone. He replied with a casual no need, yet his feet carried him straight toward them. Without hesitation he took Qin Liyue by the arm, saying they were going home. She felt the firm grip on her shoulder and couldn't help but wonder, what is this man's problem? One moment he's cozy with a green tea, the next he's jealous over her. Hiding behind the trees, Mi Ke's heart shattered into pieces at the sight. As expected of a top-tier heir, Zong Mingho's presence and display of wealth were enough to make Qin Liyue gasp. Wow. He instructed his staff to prepare a lavish meal. Qin Liyue had planned to maintain her composure and pretend she wasn't hungry. But she ended up eating faster and more than anyone else, prompting Zong Mingho to tease. If you can eat my family into poverty, I'll admit you've got talent. Qin Liyue cautiously tested the waters. This estate is huge. Can't we have separate rooms? Zong Mingho replied bluntly, the entire place is filled with my grandmother's people. Separate rooms? Not happening. Her heart skipped. Was this going to turn into the real thing? Zong Mingho pressed her again about her true reason for marrying into the Zong family. Under his relentless gaze, Qin Liyue finally told the truth. I just want to find the one who murdered my parents and bring them to justice. Once I do, I'll leave with nothing. I won't take a single cent from the Zong family. Realizing she wasn't a shallow gold digger, Zong Mingho finally eased his suspicion. I'll give you full access to the Zong family's resources. Use whatever you need to find the killer. But Qin Luyue wasn't swayed. While he slept, she quietly took her blanket and went to the sofa. Though he agreed to help her investigate, he set his own condition. Within 1 year she had to fulfill all her duties as his wife. He even declared confidently, "By then you'll be madly in love with me." What if he really tries to? The thought alone sent scandalous images flashing through Qin Liyue's mind. Determined not to let Zong Mingho get the upper hand, she made 3 strict rules for herself. First, never be swayed by that ridiculously handsome face. Second, never let proximity make her heart race. Third, repeat rules 1 and 2. She had to admit this rich young master knew how to play games. Just then the sleeping Zong Mingho cracked his eyes open. Seeing that she had no intention of sharing his bed, a wave of irritation rose in him and he walked over to her. A sly, wolfish smile curled at his lips. The next morning, Qin Luyue felt unusually well rested. Her back didn't ache, her legs weren't sore, and even her hemorrhoids felt miraculously cured. Zong Mingho, feigning innocence, asked, "Isn't this my bed? Weren't you sleeping on the sofa? How'd you end up here?" Qin Luyue blinked in confusion, hurriedly denying it. There was no way she'd do something like that. Face flushing, she bolted from the room. Watching her retreat, Zong Mingho's mood soared. Because of the wedding, Qin Luyue hadn't worked for days. If she didn't start earning soon, her aunt would be out on the streets. So she set up a stall right outside the Zong estate, selling black cards. Just then, Zong Mingho's assistant handed Qin Luyue an invitation from the Yen family. She thought to herself, she still hadn't properly thanked young Master Yen for stepping in to help her last time. This was the perfect chance and she couldn't help feeling a bit excited. But when she learned the Yen estate was 50 kilometers away, her jaw nearly dropped. Taking a taxi there would cost hundreds. The assistant simply smiled and waved her over, leading her to the Zong family's luxury garage. Faced with a dazzling lineup of high-end cars, Qin Luyue hesitated at first, feeling embarrassed to drive one. The very next second she was sighing in delight. Sports cars really were a different league. That day she returned to work at the company. Holding the near-perfect advertising proposal in her hands, she finally felt relieved. At least the rent problem was solved. But suddenly a woman slammed into her. Fate was cruel. Of all people, it was her scumbag ex-boyfriend Chen Gao's mistress. With a disdainful look, the green tea sneered, "An old hen that never lays eggs. What right do you have to compete with me for my man?" Qin Luyue had had enough. "You're just a mistress who stole someone else's boyfriend, yet you dare to act so tough? Didn't 9 years of compulsory education teach you the meaning of the word manners?" The onlookers around them were eating up the drama. An ex and a current girlfriend in the same company? This is straight out of a soap opera. The green tea made no effort to hide her arrogance, declaring that she would take every Zong family project in Qin Liyue's hands, simply because the department director was her cousin. Leaning in close to her ear, she whispered smugly, "Remember this, your projects and your man, I'm taking them all." With that, she swayed her hips and strutted away like a victor. Qin Liyue's fists clenched tightly, her whole body trembling with anger. Back in the luxury car, she slammed the steering wheel in frustration. She couldn't believe she'd fallen into this green tea trap a second time. In the middle of her frustration, she suddenly remembered. Yan Xiaonu's banquet was tonight. Buying a gown now was impossible, but luckily, her assistant had told her the car was stocked with several outfits. When she opened the trunk, her eyes were instantly blinded by the sight. A whole stash of luxury goods, enough to fill a street stall. Tears of poverty welled up in her eyes. So this is the wicked world of the rich? I like it. Meanwhile, Yan Xiaonua was at home picking out her dress, looking adorable and eye-catching. When she heard Qin Liyue was coming, she could barely contain her excitement. At that moment, Qin Liyue looked as if she'd just stepped out of a top-tier beauty clinic in Korea. So breathtaking that even in my so-called peak beauty days, I'd have had to step aside. Yan Xiaonua rushed forward, wrapping her in a warm, enthusiastic hug. She then clasped Qin Liyue's hand, eager to introduce her to the family elders. Qin Liyue's smile was bright, her heart full of gratitude. Meanwhile, Zong Mingho noticed she was gone, and his expression darkened instantly. She had gone to the Yen estate without telling him. A sharp thought crossed his mind. She must be meeting that pretty boy she'd been with in the back garden. Xiao Xiao, get the car. We're going to the Yen family. I want to see if she dares to flirt with another man right in front of me. At the banquet, Yen Chen, the eldest young master of the Yen family, had the entire hall's attention as he proudly introduced his sister, recently returned from abroad, Yen Xiaonhua. To everyone's surprise, Yen Xiaonhua emerged arm in arm with none other than Qin Liyue, the pair's entrance stunning the entire room. The moment Qin Liyue appeared, the socialites and elites looked at her with open disdain, convinced she had schemed her way into the Zong family. Yen Xiaonhua, however, ignored the whispers entirely and stepped forward. Today I want to introduce you all to a dear friend of mine. She is the beautiful, kind and adorable Qin Liyue. From now on, anyone who bullies her is picking a fight with me. The fair-weather crowd immediately began plotting how to cozy up to Qin Liyue. She covered her mouth, eyes glistening with tears. Yen Xiaonhua was helping her blend into this circle. With her support, finding the truth about her parents' deaths would be so much easier. Suddenly, Yen Xiaonhua spun around, hugging her tightly. I'll protect you from now on. Leave Zong Mingho and marry me instead. How about it? Qin Liyue, in her innocence, replied, I like you too. Yen Xiaonhua was instantly smitten and pulled her off to drink with her. Even after getting tipsy, she still reminded her, leave that scumbag Zong Mingho. Just then Zong Mingho arrived. Qin Liyue wasn't naive enough to think he had come especially for her. But suddenly he pulled her firmly into his arms and said in a low, commanding voice, You've had too much to drink. Come on, we're going home. Yen Xiaonhua rose slowly to her feet, her sharp gaze locking onto him. I don't recall inviting you tonight. Did you get my permission? Don't push your luck. Zong Mingho didn't give her an ounce of face. Smiling faintly, he said to Qin Liyue, She's my legal wife. Do I need to get the approval of a little brat like you to take her home? Ever since he had taken Qin Liyue from Yen Xiaonhua, something in his feelings toward her had shifted. That night, on the way home, the two remained silent, but the air between them felt different. Thanks to the help of the driver, Qin Liyue lost her balance and fell into Zong Mingho's arms. That close skin-to-skin contact sent an unexpected ripple through both of their hearts. Early in the morning, Zong Mingho was already awake, gazing at the sleeping Qin Liyue with a love-struck expression. Taking advantage of the quiet, he playfully reached out to squeeze her soft, chubby cheeks. Last night's stolen kiss clearly hadn't satisfied him. Since she was still asleep, why not sneak in another? Qin Liyue let out a faint, sleepy hum, startling him into pulling back like a guilty puppy caught red-handed. Just then, Qin Liyue's eyes fluttered open. She covered her face in embarrassment. Oh no, how had she ended up in his bed again? Little did she know, Zong Mingho was grinning to himself with his back turned. She tried to slip out quietly, but his voice stopped her cold. Well, which little kitten climbed into my bed again? Qin Liyue gave an awkward laugh. What's this? You spent all night touching every inch of me and now you want to run after taking advantage? He teased. The words sent the innocent Qin Liyue fleeing in embarrassment. Watching her retreat, Zong Mingho's heart swelled with delight. Qin Liyue skipped breakfast and hurried straight to work. Out of nowhere, a luxury car sped past, splashing dirty water all over her. She frowned and muttered, Seriously? Can't you see there's someone standing here? The car stopped and out stepped her ex, Qin Gao, with a smug smirk. Liyue, we've broken up. What's this all about? Don't tell me you still have feelings for me. Just seeing him with that woman made Qin Liyue feel sick. Beside him, the green tea schemer Wang Lan seized the chance to flaunt. See this? My man bought it for me. Latest limited edition supercar. Someone like you could never afford it in your lifetime. Qin Liyue's face remained indifferent, though inwardly she scoffed. What on earth had she been thinking to ever like this freeloading pretty boy? Wang Lan, looking triumphant, was already plotting to have Qin Gao be her date at the company's annual gala, just to humiliate Qin Liyue in public. At that moment, a colleague approached with a cheerful smile. Liyue, the year-end party's coming up. Have you picked a date yet? If not, there's a fine, you know. Her heart sank. She was short on cash and couldn't afford to pay a penalty. But with so little time left, who could she possibly ask? Thinking it over, the only man that came to mind was Zong Mingho. She frowned at the thought. Was she really going to swallow her pride and ask that infuriating man? If she did, she'd never hear the end of it. After a long internal struggle, she decided to drop the idea. The Zong family project had once been snatched from Qin Liyue's hands, and now that it had gone south, her manager cousin had the nerve to lash out at her. Putting on a pitiful act, the woman washed her hands of it entirely, even pinning the blame on Qin Liyue. A textbook case of the good get bullied. This time Qin Liyue wasn't having it. She sneered, "Weren't you the one bragging? Now that the project's blown up, you dump the blame on me? I seriously wonder how someone like you even got into this company." The so-called green tea still tried to save face. "I got in here on my own merit." Liyue fired back without mercy in front of the manager. "Then clean up your own mess instead of throwing it at others, unless you want me to lose even more respect for you." The woman was left speechless and the manager's expression began to shift. In the end, she stormed out of the meeting room humiliated. The onlookers couldn't help but whisper how satisfying it was to watch. Knowing the green tea cousin couldn't possibly salvage the project, the manager turned to Qin Liyue, promising her a 30% commission if she was willing to fix it. Qin Liyue knew better than to agree so easily. Give them an inch now and they'd be back to trample her again. Just then her aunt called, urging her to come home at once. Qin Guomin and his wife were there, trying to take her late parents' belongings. The moment she arrived, Qin's mother sneered sarcastically, well, if it isn't the young madam. How gracious of you to pay us a visit." Her aunt hurried over, shoving a vase into her arms and whispering, "Hide this antique before they take it." Liyue frowned, baffled. "We already settled everything. Why are you still here trying to take my family's things?" Qin's mother pulled out an old IOU with a smirk. "This proves your aunt borrowed money from us 10 years ago." Her aunt admitted with deep shame that she'd once borrowed 100,000 yuan in a moment of desperation, never expecting they'd use it now to force Liyue into a divorce. Determined to uncover the truth behind her parents' deaths, Liyue stood her ground. "Do you take me for livestock to be slaughtered at will? Don't push me too far." Her defiance caught them off guard. After all, they still had to think twice before crossing the Zhong family's young madam. To make them leave, Qin Liyue gritted her teeth and promised to repay the money by the end of the month. Once they were gone, she immediately called the director. "I'll take the project, but I want my mid-year bonus paid in advance." She vowed to herself. She was no longer anyone's pushover and from now on she would bow to no one. After work, she planned to soak in a hot bath and get some sleep. But the moment she thought about sleeping, her head began to buzz. To stop herself from sleepwalking into that pervert's bed again, she decided to wrap herself up with bandages. That's when Zhong Mingho suddenly appeared behind her. "What are you doing?" Startled, she stammered, unable to form a proper answer. In her panic, she lost her balance and fell, the white bandages wrapping tightly around her like they had a mind of their own. The sight almost made Zhong Mingho's nose bleed. Was this woman trying to seduce him? Forcing himself to stay calm, he told himself it was nothing. Just a minor scene. The next moment nearly made Zhong Mingho drool. If she was going to be this forward, then maybe lending her a hand wouldn't be so bad. Qin Liyue panicked, rushing to explain, but the more she moved, the tighter the bandages wrapped around her, leaving her completely stuck. The room went dead silent and the hot-blooded Zhong Mingho finally lost control. He lunged at her with a smirk. "Didn't know you were into this kind of heavy stuff." Liyue tried to protest, but he cut her off. "Oh, if that's not what you meant, then maybe I should give it some meaning." Before she could react, his lips claimed hers in a domineering kiss. She shoved him away hard. "Pervert! What the hell are you doing?" That snapped him back to reality. He'd almost taken it even further. Quickly pulling himself together, he shot back. "I should be asking you, dressed like this, do you think it's appropriate? Girls should be a little more reserved." Without waiting for a reply, he turned away under the excuse of handling his nosebleed. Liyue glared after him. What a shameless man, taking advantage and then pretending to be all proper. Zhong Mingho felt as if he'd just tasted honey. This girl was unexpectedly sweet. That night, he worked in the study until the early hours before heading back to his room. The moment he walked in, he found Liyue wrapped up tight like a mummy. His mood soured instantly. "Seriously? All wrapped up like I'm some kind of predator? Who in their right mind would want to share a bed with her?" He refused to believe he couldn't sleep alone. But reality had other plans. Watching her sleep like the dead, irritation bubbled up in him. If she didn't want to share a bed, then he'd make sure she couldn't avoid it. The next morning, Liu stretched lazily, thinking smugly, all tied up like this, there's no way I could have sleepwalked into his bed again. But when she opened her eyes, she froze. It was the third time she'd woken up right next to that shameless man. Zong Mingho smirked. You really know how to play, huh? First you tie yourself up to tempt me, then you sneak into my bed in the middle of the night. Are you trying to test my self-control? Liu wanted nothing more than to disappear into the floor. This time, there was no talking her way out of it. Zhong Mingho changed clothes in front of her without the slightest embarrassment. I'm heading overseas for a few days. I heard your company's annual party is coming up and I just happened to be free then, so how about? Before he could finish, Liu cut in. Relax. I definitely won't trouble you. His jaw tightened. Seriously? How dense can this woman be? I practically spelled it out for her. Liu, on the other hand, thought there must be something wrong with him. Still, the thought of having the whole place to herself instantly put her in a great mood. As soon as Zhong Mingho left, he invited Yan Xiaonhua out for some fun at the amusement park. What he didn't expect was to run into Qin Gao and that green tea snake, Liu Yue's scumbag ex and his mistress. Overhearing their conversation, Xiaonhua realized who they were. Being the proud, sharp-tongued type, she wasn't about to let them off easy. Just then Liu returned with drinks and ran straight into them. She muttered, "Great, these lunatics again. Like a pair of bad pennies." Every time those two saw Liu, they came alive, spitting venom and twisting the story so much that anyone listening would think she was the one who cheated. Liu chose not to stoop to their level and turned to leave, but Yan Xiaonhua had already lost her patience. She pointed straight at the pair and let loose. You two are unbelievable. Cheating and then playing the victim? Scumbag, have some self-awareness. Cutting in line is bad enough, but you just have to spew garbage every time you open your mouth. And you, of all the things you could be, you chose to be the homewrecker? Aren't you ashamed? The onlookers erupted in applause. This was a full-on live, tear the cheater apart moment, and it was glorious. Qin Gao's face twisted in rage. Whose brat are you? Shut it. This is grown-up business. Stay out of it. Before he could say more, Xiaonhua snatched the water cup from Liu Yue's hand. Without hesitation, she splashed it right in his face. Shameless piece of trash. Honestly, this girl was fearless. If there was trouble, she dove right in. The crowd eagerly whipped out their phones, ready to post the drama online for the world to see. Xiaonhua turned to Liu with a sly grin. So, you still don't have a date for the annual party, do you? Liu froze, fumbling for words. Relax, I've got this. If you want to steal the spotlight and walk in like a queen, then there's only one choice. My second brother, Yan Qin. Liu really couldn't bring herself to say no, but just imagining taking Yan Qin to the party made her think, wouldn't that crazy CEO husband of hers lose his mind? Far away on a business trip, Zong Mingho sneezed non-stop, an ominous feeling creeping over him. Pointing at the butler beside him, he grumbled, the landscaping here is too much. All this green, it's making me uneasy. Without another word, he started packing. If he didn't get back now, his wife might just run off with someone else. The moment he stepped through the door, he headed straight for the bedroom. There she was, Liu, sleeping soundly as if the world outside didn't exist. Mingho frowned. He'd told her he'd be away, so why was she still obediently sleeping on the sofa? He reached out, pinching her cheek and brushing against her skin as if making sure she was real. Seriously, Mingho, can you stop stealing kisses when she's asleep? You're the definition of a shy, repressed man. The guy couldn't sleep without his wife next to him, yet in the daytime he insisted she take the sofa, only to sneak her back into bed in the middle of the night. Talk about pride over comfort. But play with fire long enough and you'll get burned. That night, just as he carried her to bed again, Liu Yue's eyes flew open and she shrieked, "What kind of toad are you?" When she realized it was Mingho, she froze, thinking she must have sleepwalked again. Without a word, Zong Mingho scooped her up and tossed her back onto the sofa. With a dead serious face, he said, "Oh, you're one to talk? Climbing into my bed again. I didn't even have a place to sleep." His ridiculous excuse left Liu completely baffled. Hugging the sofa pillow, she noticed it was warm, yet she was sure she'd been sleeping here the whole time. Nearly caught red-handed, Mingho retreated to the bathroom, leaning against the door, heart pounding wildly. Patting his chest, he muttered to himself, "What am I panicking for? He's my wife. Sleeping together isn't weird." As the night deepened, they each stayed in their own spot. She slept like a baby. He tossed and turned, unable to drift off, unless of course he was holding her. Determined to get some decent rest, he dragged her entire sofa right next to his bed with great effort. They weren't technically sharing a bed, but the gap between them was practically non-existent. In his mind, that didn't count as crossing a line. He stretched out his arm, waiting patiently for her to roll over into it. This man's schemes really knew no bounds. The moment Liu opened her eyes that morning, the first thing she saw was Zong Mingho's ridiculously handsome face. She jolted upright in shock. Wait, did I crawl into his bed again? Don't tell me I subconsciously crave his looks. Glancing down and seeing she was still on the sofa, she finally breathed a little easier. But then it hit her, hold on, did I actually sleepwalk and move the furniture too? After pushing the sofa back into place, she collapsed like she'd just fought a war. Just then, a major announcement popped up in the company group chat. This year's annual gala would feature a VIP guest. Mi-Ke. Liu was stunned. Of all people, it had to be the infamous queen of fake innocence from the upper-class circle. To make matters worse, the notice was bold and underlined. Bring a male partner or kiss your year-end bonus goodbye. She choked so hard on her water she almost died right there. Mingho, who had clearly been eavesdropping, smirked inwardly. Who else could be your date if not me? 10 minutes later, Zong Mingho was already simmering with irritation. What's taking her so long to beg me to be her date? This woman is hopeless. Fed up, he deliberately played a voice message from Mi-Ke. Brother, are you free this Friday? I need a date for a banquet. He even pretended to reply casually. Friday? Sure. I'll let you know when the time comes. That little performance left Liu with a faint pang of disappointment. If I end up bumping into them with Yen Ershao, I might as well resign now. Thinking she still didn't have a partner, Mingho kindly suggested his own driver. Xiao Zhao. Liu rolled her eyes. You take Mi-Ke, I'll take Yen Ershao. Later, when he found out her date was actually Yen Chen, Mingho was convinced it was Yen Xiaonua's doing. Do whatever it takes to keep Yen Chen from showing up. On the night of the gala, Yen Chen's company suddenly ran into trouble, forcing him to cancel last minute. Liu was stunned. At such a critical moment, who else could she possibly rely on? All she could do was grit her teeth and face whatever came her way. A coworker spotted her alone and couldn't help but ask, "You came by yourself? Don't tell me you don't have a date." Before Liu could respond, that shameless couple popped out of nowhere. With fake sympathy dripping from their voices, they sneered, "Oh my, who's this poor soul? No date at the company gala? Guess your bonus is toast." Come on, Qin Liu. So what if you're the company's star planner? This year's gala could make or break a major partnership. If you embarrass us, you'd better pray for your own future. Liu didn't even blink. She'd long since learned to treat this kind of sniping like a stray dog barking. The gala officially began with the boss and his wife on stage boasting, "Bring a date and you two can find happiness like ours." Amid loud applause, Mi-Ke made her entrance in killer heels, smiling sweetly. "Now let's dance the night away." In the crowd, Wang Lan deliberately raised her voice, aiming a jab straight at Liu. The executives finally noticed. Liu had indeed shown up alone. Wang Lan fanned the flames and the gossipers piled on with their snide remarks. Sensing her moment, Mi-Ke's smile turned syrupy. "Didn't you just marry young Master Zong? Why are you all by yourself?" Her tone sharpened. "It's your company's culture to show up with a date. Or are you trying to challenge your boss's authority?" Alone and outnumbered, Liu swallowed her anger, forcing herself to stay composed. The boss seized the moment to pile on. "This gala is meant to bring joy to my wife. If you don't have a date, take the night off. Leave now, you're not welcome here." The two green tea schemers smirked, their smug expressions plain for all to see. Just as everyone was ready to watch her humiliation, a deep, confident voice rang out from the doorway. "Who said she doesn't have a date?" All heads turned. Zong Mingho strode in, sharp in a tailored suit, his presence commanding the room. His timing was impeccable. Naive as she was, Liu had no idea this was calculated. Her heart simply swelled with sudden, overwhelming relief. Mi-Ke instantly hurried toward him, making Liu's stomach sink. "So, I really was imagining things. But Zong Mingho's gaze was icy. Me Kerr, you've misunderstood. I agreed to attend the gala, but I never said I'd be your dance partner. Then he turned to Liyue, taking her hand with a warmth that stunned her. Sorry to keep you waiting, my love. The sweet words hit her like a sneak attack, too much for her unguarded heart to resist. Orphaned from a young age, Liyue had never felt the rare, steady warmth of someone standing firmly by her side. Under the dazzling lights, the two began to dance, like a scene pulled straight from a fairy tale. Still, a small voice in her mind wondered, why was the man who usually spoke to her so cold suddenly being this gentle? But in that moment, her defenses had already fallen. When the dance ended, she couldn't help but ask, didn't you promise me Kerr you'd be her date? Zong Mingho said it as if it were obvious. If I'd been her date, you'd probably cry yourself to sleep tonight. He stepped closer, voice low. I did save you today. Don't you think you owe me a thank you? So that's what this cunning Xiao was after. Liyue's heart thudded wildly as she asked, then, what kind of thank you do you want? He only curved his lips into a sly smile. I'll be looking forward to it. The deliberate pause left her imagination running wild. Only then did she realize she had nothing now. Nothing to give him, except herself. Her cheeks flushed hot. Was he talking about that? The memory of him shielding her at the gala flashed in her mind and her thoughts spiraled. He's so handsome and rich, even if it's that, maybe it wouldn't be such a loss. Lost in her fantasies, she jolted when Zong Mingho suddenly pushed the door open. He walked toward her slowly. Liyue stammered, don't, even as her body betrayed her, edging back. Zong Mingho's gaze held hers as he said lightly, just bringing you your pajamas. Liyue let out a small breath of relief, though deep down she couldn't deny a twinge of disappointment. Zong Mingho, of course, had already read her like an open book. Then out of nowhere her ankle gave way, and she stumbled straight into his arms. Something soft brushed against him. Her lips. The unexpected kiss made both their hearts skip a beat. Sorry, she whispered, quickly pulling back. The man, ever the subtle flirt, smirked inwardly. So this is your way of saying thanks? Playing hard to get him? In the next moment he stepped in, caging her against the wall. She thought about pushing him away, but her body refused to move. And then she was lost, completely swept away by his domineering, searing kiss. His voice was a low rumble at her ear. My little wife, taking advantage and trying to run? Or even now? As for your thank you, rest well tonight. Tomorrow, give yourself to me. The words made her heart flutter wildly. Give myself to him? Just the thought made her cheeks burn. One dared to tease, the other dared to imagine, both tangled in a world that belonged to no one else but them. That day, Zong Mingho decided the time was right and brought Liyue to visit his grandmother. But instead of a warm welcome, the old lady's expression hardened. She scolded them for not having any movement in Liyue's belly and even hinted she regretted letting Zong Mingho marry her in his younger brother's place. Still, she had to admit, ever since Liyue entered the Zong family, Mingho's younger brother, Zong Mingza, hadn't suffered an episode in a long while. But a grandmother who only cared about holding her great-grandchild had no patience for Mingho's attempts at flattery. Her voice was firm, leaving no room for argument. If Liyue isn't pregnant with the Zong family's child within a year, you'll divorce her. Mingho dared not disobey, but frustration gnawed at him. If he'd known this would happen, he'd have claimed her last night. Meanwhile, Liyue wandered through the sprawling Zong estate like a curious traveler, taking in the scenery as if it were a hidden paradise. Then a cheerful "sister" rang out from behind, making her freeze. Since when did Zong Mingho speak so gently and call her that? She turned, only to be met by an innocent, boyish smile. In that instant she knew this was no cold, calculating Xiao. This was Zong Mingza, his younger brother, the man she was originally meant to marry. Mingza stepped closer, his tone warm and open. Sister, if you like it here, then we're good friends. I like you. Will you come often? Liyue couldn't help thinking he wasn't as foolish as the rumors claimed. In fact, he was just an innocent boy at heart. So she played along, smiling. I'll come often. I like you too. The butler, however, looked alarmed, struggling to coax Zong Mingza back to his room. Inwardly, Liyue sighed, same face yet a completely different feeling. If only Zong Mingho could be this gentle. Just then, a maid approached her quietly. It's best not to get too close to the second young master. If he remembers what happened 18 years ago, he could lose control. Liu decided she didn't need to know more. In a family like this, curiosity was dangerous. On the way back, Zong Mingho did something rare. He offered comfort. You don't have to be so tense around Grandma. I'll shield you from her. She blinked in surprise. So he could be considerate? Maybe she had misjudged him. Then he leaned in, voice low and deliberate. After all I've done for you, don't you think you owe me some gratitude? In broad daylight, his words made her cheeks burn. She looked away. Fine. Come with me somewhere. Soon the two arrived at the Zong family's private beach. Watching the glittering waves, memories stirred in Mingho's mind. Back then, this was where he and his brother loved to play the most. Ever since the incident 18 years ago, his younger brother had never set foot here again. Now everything had changed. Those carefree days between brothers were nothing but a misty memory. Liu couldn't help but wonder, what exactly had happened back then to turn this beach into forbidden ground? Maybe he was the one who carried the deepest wound. The thought made her step forward instinctively, wrapping her arms around Zong Mingho. Maybe he wasn't so unbearable after all. He let out a sly smirk. So this is your idea of saying thanks? Her gaze softened. My aunt used to say, if someone wants to cry, a hug might make it better. He tapped her forehead lightly, smiling with a warmth that caught her off guard. I'm not as easy to comfort as you are, but if this is your way of trying, I'd say it worked. Their eyes locked, neither willing to look away. The longer he looked, the more he found her irresistible. Slowly, almost against his own will, he leaned closer to her lips. She wanted to resist, but her body wouldn't listen, her heartbeat spinning out of control. With the sea breeze curling around them, the salty air carried them deeper into each other's presence, until nothing else existed. Yesterday he barely acknowledged Liu. Today he acted like she was out of his league. This scumbag ex had once sneered at her modest life, choosing instead to cheat. Now, seeing her shine brighter than ever while his sweet girlfriend grew more unbearable by the day, regret was written all over his face. Typical, jerks never change. Shamelessly, he came begging to get her back, putting on a pitiful act. He claimed his cheating was forced, and swore that Liu was the only woman he had ever truly loved. He even blamed their breakup on his current girlfriend, Wang Lan, and vowed he would never marry her, desperately trying to prove his so-called loyalty. Liu wasn't buying it. She yanked her hand free and shot back coldly, whatever's going on between you and her has nothing to do with me. Don't ever bother me again. She turned to leave, but he suddenly grabbed her, twisting her ankle with a sharp crack that made her hiss in pain. Qingao, this is a company, not your house, and definitely not your playground. Show some respect. She shoved his hand away once more. Around them, co-workers whispered in disgust. How shameless, clinging to an ex after a breakup. Turns out, the receptionist had just blasted a message in the company group chat. Liu's scumbag ex was trying to crawl back. Meanwhile, Wang Lan, clueless about the truth, assumed Liu was chasing after Qingao and loudly promised to teach her a lesson. She stormed over, jabbing a finger at Liu. You've got some nerve. Trying to seduce my Gao again. She raised her hand, ready to slap her across the face. Just as the slap was about to land, a hand shot out and caught Wang Lan's wrist. It was Yan Xiaonhua, her voice like ice. Touch a single hair on Liu's head and I'll make sure you regret it. Determined to protect Liu, Yan Xiaonhua had arranged through her family to work in the same company, ready to step in whenever needed. Wang Lan instantly froze. She knew the Yan family was way out of her league. Without another word, she grabbed Qingao by the ear and scurried off. Yan Xiaonhua started to go after them, but Liu caught her arm and shook her head. They shared a smile and hugged tightly. Inside, Yan Xiaonhua made a silent vow. She would steal Liu away from Zong Mingho no matter what. Meanwhile, in his office, Zong Mingho listened to his assistant's report about Liu being harassed. His palm slammed down on the desk, his face dark as thunder. Looks like some people need to be taught a lesson, he said coldly. Out in the parking lot, Qingao sulked, thinking if I'd known Liu was this sought after, I never would have wasted my time on that green tea Wang Lan. But before he could even unlock his car, he realized the remote wasn't working. Looking up, he saw his vehicle smashed beyond recognition. While Qingao was still cursing his luck, a group of men in black appeared silently behind him. Before he could even turn around, a sack was thrown over his head. A heavy punch landed squarely, followed by a ruthless low blow that made him howl in agony. As they left, one of the men tossed something at him. "Here's your medical bill. Next time you mess with our boss's woman, you won't be breathing." Qin Gao, now swollen beyond recognition, stammered, "I won't. I swear I won't," though inside he seethed. He had no idea what connection Li Wei had with this so-called boss, and the beating felt like it came out of nowhere. Meanwhile, Zong Mingho arrived at Liu Yue's company. Without warning and in full view of the office, he scooped her up into his arms. "I'm here to take you home." Liu Yue's face flushed instantly. "Put me down. Everyone's watching," she whispered urgently, but Zong Mingho was utterly unfazed by the stares. Under the envious and jealous gazes of her co-workers, she was carried right out of the building, wishing she could sink into the floor. "This man is an unpredictable rogue," she thought, "always finding excuses to take advantage of me." On the way, Zong Mingho leaned close and ordered in a low voice, "Stop calling me Mr. Zong. Use my name." Li Yue shyly murmured her agreement, turning toward the car window, her cheeks tinged pink. Zong Mingho still refused to admit even to himself that he'd fallen for her, repeating in his mind that marrying her was nothing more than revenge. Once they got home, he immediately knelt down and took hold of her injured foot. "What else would I be doing? I'm putting medicine on it. Just bear with it for a moment," he said, his voice firm yet unexpectedly gentle. "Ah." She gasped as the antiseptic touched her skin. "No." The sudden, breathy cry hung in the air, turning the moment unbearably intimate. Before she could explain, his fingers laced tightly with hers. Their breaths mingled, heartbeats pounding in sync as they stared into each other's eyes. He gave a low chuckle. "They say kissing takes the pain away. Want to test the theory?" Seeing her flustered, torn between resisting and giving in, he knew his charms were working. Without another word, he scooped her into his arms. "Tonight," he declared, "you're sleeping in my bed." Liu Yue's heart was in chaos. She was about to refuse when Zong Mingho cut in. "If you sleep on the couch and end up crawling into my bed in the middle of the night, your injury will only get worse." Innocently she asked, "Then if I take the bed, where will you sleep?" Realizing how that sounded, she quickly added with forced composure, "I'll just sleep in the guest room instead." His lips curved into a mischievous smile. "Don't worry, I'll make sure to protect myself." The remark made her blush to her ears. Shouldn't she be the one who needed protecting? As night fell, she drifted off in his arms, sleeping more soundly than ever. Zong Mingho inhaled the soft scent of her hair, quietly savoring the moment as they spent the night nestled together. The next day at the office, Yan Xiaonhua was still fussing over her injury. Right then, the ever-annoying Wang Lan appeared again, sneering, "Making such a fuss over a tiny injury, anyone would think you'd been in a car crash." Yan Xiaonhua shot back with an icy smile, "Keep that snide tone up and I'll make sure you find out exactly what a broken bone feels like." Wang Lan instantly shut her mouth. Li Wei added calmly, "This is my private office. If you have nothing else to say, please leave." Wang Lan, looking smug, slammed an ornate invitation onto the desk. "Gao and I are getting married. I hope you'll come and witness our happiest moment." Her smile turned razor sharp. "If you can't afford a gift, that's fine. I don't care about your pocket change. Just make sure you have the guts to show up." Li Wei had never been humiliated like this before. She wasn't the one who'd done anything shameful. This was pure, brazen provocation. Lifting her gaze, she replied firmly, "Don't worry, I'll be there. And I hope you two shameless lovebirds stop ruining other people's lives." Wang Lan scoffed. "When you see Gao holding me and making his vows, don't start crying." Li Wei only smiled faintly. She didn't take the taunt seriously. If Wang Lan wanted to humiliate her, she'd just have to wait for her own downfall. After work, Li Wei accompanied her aunt to Qin Guoming's house. The moment they stepped in, they were met with the Qin family's bitter, condescending voices. "Pay up. If you don't have the money, use that vase your parents left behind to settle the debt." Li Wei immediately shielded her aunt and shot back coldly, "The repayment deadline isn't here yet. What's the rush?" The Qin family's faces twisted into something ugly. "I want the money now. Either hand over the vase or divorce Zong Mingho." "What? Not convinced? Then throw some money at me." Before the words had even faded, A thick wad of cash smacked her square in the face. As you wish. Here's your money. We're even. But Mrs. Chin wasn't done. And what about all the other debts your family owed us over the years? Liu Yue's voice turned icy. When my mother was alive, she helped your family more times than I can count. Don't think you can use some made-up debt to steal what my parents left me. I've had enough of being bullied under your roof all these years. Enraged, the Qin women lunged at her, each grabbing a handful of Liu Yue's hair, shrieking, "Stealing my Mingho? Why don't you just die like your parents did?" Her aunt, heartbroken and furious, snapped. "Shut your filthy mouths. The ones who should die are you." With a resounding slap, she struck Mrs. Qin across the face. Seeing his daughter crumple to the floor, Qin Guoming roared, "One more word and I'll have you locked in a mental hospital." Her aunt sneered, unfazed. "Oh, I can be crazier than that. Want to hear?" Then she screamed at the top of her lungs, "It was you who killed my brother and sister-in-law.